I'm curious about what Robert from Massachusetts is calling in to talk about. Robert, you're on the air with Vi and Jon.
Hi, Vi, Jon. How's it going?
Doing good. Excited
What's
to hear
up,
from
Robert?
you. What's up?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm really thrilled that paganism and metaphysics and all this stuff is a recurring theme today, because what I'm calling in for is something right along the same vein of that. So I am a agnostic atheist.
Okay.
And the thing is, I've always had things like tarot, astrology, and general divination practices as part of my life. Even back when I was a kid, back when I was a Catholic, I had really liberal parents. They're very supportive of everything that me and my sister do, and even my sister's a Wiccan. But the thing is I, in recent years have realized, as far as on a spiritual scale, I'm very, I don't really believe. I'm not convinced that there's a God. I don't know if, if my dead relatives are watching over me, and I don't know if I'm going anywhere where I die. And, so that's the thing. However, even though I don't necessarily believe that there's power to something the stars or cards or crystals, it's and one of the reasons why I've always wanted to have a conversation with you, Dee, specifically, is that because you say you're a secular witch, and I'm like, yeah, secular witchcraft. I pretty much still do that. I have my altar there that, back from those days. And so something that I'm struggling with today, as someone who's on that end of the spectrum, is I am someone who actually gives readings to people, and sometimes I even get financially compensated for them.
Yeah.
And so something that I really struggle with is that it's how can I? It's when people ask for spiritual advice, on that metaphysical scale, I give it to them based on what, according to that rule. But at the same time, it's I feel I don't want to feel like I'm lying to them.
Yeah.
It's I do try to give secular answers, when I do. But it's people sometimes ask me, what's my future going to hold? Or is he going to call me back? And
right.
And it's I don't know, because I don't look into that. It's but I can tell you, what your options are if he doesn't call you back. Or basically, I try to give them real answers. And so my question to you is have you ever dabbled in stuff like that before, the astrology or the tarot?
Great questions. I love this. And yeah, so yes, I do read tarot. And I have for a couple of years now. That's a holdover back from my my Wiccan days. And it's actually really wonderful to do, I've found, because it allows me to get out of the loop that's going on in my own head. You know how you get into that space of you think about a thing and then you think about it again, and then you kind of just get into this cycle. And reading tarot for me is a really good way to get out of my head and say, okay, well, I'm going to think about this from another angle, or I'm going to think about this in terms of what I could do financially or in my relationship to make my life better. And here's a suggestion that I'm pulling from this card that is, beautiful, but inherently meaningless itself. So yes, I do not astrology so much, but I do tarot, and I consider it to be a therapeutic practice, very mindful, very much like meditation.
Right.
And I also do it for other people sometimes. And I've actually struggled with this thing as well, which is I could definitely charge to read tarot for people, but would that sit ethically with me, right? Is that an ethical thing to do? Because you know that people take this very seriously, and you don't want to be responsible for them going out and doing something that's going to get them in trouble later because you said something about a card. So I fully get that. And kind of where I landed is realizing that there is a really beautiful tradition of magicians in skepticism and in atheism. James Randi, who just passed, right? Penn Jillette, Matt Dillahunty, they do magic shows for money but they use it as a tool to teach skepticism, right? And they do it as a way to highlight, here's how your brain works. Here's what I'm doing to your brain right now using tactics you're not aware of. And it's fun and it's engaging and it's informative, and it uses the tools that they're comfortable with and that they like very much. So I would say that if charging for tarot or astrology readings is something that you want to do, inherently, I don't think it's a bad thing just off the bat, as long as you are clear and you treat it as an educational opportunity, right? You talk about Barnum statements, you talk about self-fulfilling prophecy, you talk about, how people infer things from the meaning that we give them culturally. And as long as you're doing that and you're very intentional, then I don't see a problem with it.
Wow. See, now, funny how you mentioned people like James Randi, because it's like people like James Randi were adamantly against, people like us, during his lifetime. Like, he even had like the whole $1 million, if you can prove you're a psychic or prove that you did this, then again, so I think it's pretty interesting. But I do absolutely agree, Vi, that these things can be used in a educational kind of. One person that I actually read before said that, you actually don't predict the future so much as you give food for thought. And I'm
exactly,
like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't give people answers, but I help people come to their own conclusions. And absolutely, like you said, Vi, it's like, it's, just because, like, both of us were born in August doesn't mean that, I'm influenced by a giant kitty in the sky, or you're influenced by a giant, virgin golden wheat. Yeah, by the way, I saw your birthday post on August 24th. That's how I know you're Virgo.
I was going to say, that's a cold read right there. No, exactly. And that's the thing. Exactly what you just did. We were both born in August. People go, ooh, this stranger knew that Vi was born in... No, you saw a post about my birthday because my birthday is public because I'm a content creator now. And exactly. And I think the key here is to always be pushing that. There is nothing inherently wrong or right or moral or immoral or powerful about the tools that we use. Excuse me, that truck was very loud. So there is nothing powerful about tarot outside of what we do with it. Mm-hmm. So the people, the skeptics who say, ooh, tarot is bad, are just as bad as the religious people saying, oh, tarot is bad, because they're giving it this external property of power that it just doesn't have. They're cards, they're fun, there's cultural references there, but we are free to use these tools however we want, and all we have to be accountable for is if we're doing so responsibly.
Right. It's basically using meaningful coincidence, like, to your own understanding and apply it to your own subjective life. Because when someone says, Rob, it's like, why do you astrology? You can basically apply any horoscope to anyone to be just as accurate. That's exactly the point.
Exactly.
and use it in a way that, and that's what I do. I use like everything that I can to help people come to answers in ways. And part of sorry, I'm stuttering. I'm just like
you're all right.
That's okay. I would love to continue this conversation. Jon, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of experience in this particular area, but one of the things I'm noticing, even in the way that you're speaking, Robert, is that it's clear that you're thinking a lot about the morality of the way that you're walking this stuff out, right? Mm-hmm. And
I am, yeah.
The person that would take advantage of this stuff wouldn't be asking the questions that you're asking. So I think that you have reason to trust your instincts here to a large degree, right? Like I think that you've already shown in this conversation that you want to walk this stuff out ethically and morally, and I think that by very nature of the fact that you're having this conversation and instigating it, I think that means you should trust yourself to a degree, and not overthink it or second guess yourself too much.
Yeah. And I'm actually on the ACA Discord. I'm RCD Shane. It's like, if any of you guys want to have that conversation later on, or if anybody who's listening wants to have that conversation with me, I'm number 1475. So I know it's not advertising, but I figured come at me.
Well, there you go. And we're going to be on the Discord after this, but only if we wrap up very soon. So, Robert, thank you for calling in. I think this is a useful conversation to have in front of large groups of people because we're challenging some misconceptions, right? And we want to make sure we're doing that responsibly. So thank you for calling in.
Thanks, Robert.